What is up, you guys? Koki here again, this time with the second build of this league. Now, ironically enough, this league has been a lot more fun for me than last league Ultimatum, despite, you know, all the nerfs and all the stuff you guys probably heard a bunch of times already. Needless to say, though, I think the reason behind this is because this league is actually more challenging than for me than Ultimatum. And there's a lot more new skills to F around with, so despite the nerfs, we can use our big head brain to basically destroy all the content in the game. And this is one of those surprising builds that completely worked against my intentions and yet worked out at the end of the day incredibly well. Let's talk about this. This time we decided to F around with BATTLEMAGE Cry, the new war cry they added in 3.15. Now, if you don't know what this cry does, basically gives you a little bit of critical strike chance. Honestly, nothing to write home about, but it also makes increases and reductions to spell damage also apply to attacks at 150% of the value, or in English, basically, if you have 100 spell damage, right, while this war cry's buff is up, it has a certain duration, about 6 seconds. For those 6 seconds, you're gonna get all that spell damage multiplied times 1.5, and then it'll give you attack damage. So if you have 100 spell damage times 1.5, now you have 150% increased attack damage. It's insane. Builds out this using strength stacking, using repentance gloves. I'm gonna go into that topic. It's a whole different ball game. They're very good for that scenario, but I wanted to do it kind of differently. See, GGGs lately, or the past few leagues, have been trying to do this kind of hybrid playstyle, especially with a thing called BattleMage. And basically what BattleMage does is that it gives basically the weapon that you're using, let's say it is an axe, the flat number on the axe, let's say it's 300 to 600 on the top. That flat is then added to your spell as flat damage. So basically if it's flat physical, your spell then has flat physical. In this scenario, what we want to do is basically make a hybrid attack spellcaster. So I want both my attack and my spell to do damage. Now, needless to say, this is not usually a good idea to follow, because the more you don't focus on one thing, the worse it'll become. And that's kind of a lesson if you've never made a build before. You really want to maintain that. Always narrow mind or narrow focus down onto a specific theme for your build, and you will most likely usually succeed if that theme is strong enough and is built on well enough, right? But we said, fuck it. F the meta. We're going to use BattleMage Cry, and we're going to make a hybrid build. It's definitely going to be, in essence, a battle mage. Things didn't quite work out as well as I intended in terms of the idea, but the build still destroyed at the end of the day. And how do we accomplish this? Well, the build technically started out by trying to find a way to both scale the attack and the spell. Now, the one thing that we have to make sure is that, because we're still using slam, this is a slam build since we're using BattleMage Cry, I wanted to make sure that we get every single Warcry speed and cooldown recovery node on the tree, so that basically when you Warcry, it is instantaneously and there is no little delay that you guys hate while playing. And it's honestly very cool, because they do give a lot of cool buffs, and they also heal you and remove elements, which is insane for defense. Now, on this topic though, how do we scale this? Well, the only way to get Battle Mage really is from an Ascendancy and it's Inquisitor. The problem with Inquisitor is, if you're playing a Slammer, you have to go Berserk, because Berserk gives you literally 90% more damage. On top of that, it gives you crap ton of Rage, which basically is movement speed and attack speed, which Slam builds desperately need. And of course, it's next to all the Warcry nodes. And it's very important, because I want this build to be smooth despite being a Slam build, and it did come out smooth, which is great. But if you go Berserker, how do we get Battle Mage? And this is where it gets kind of interesting. There is a staff called Martyr of Innocence. Now, the staff gives you a lot of blocks, so we do get 50% block in its build for defense, which is perfecto. It's really good. And it gives you flat 100% fire damage, which is great, because it does affect both your spell and your attack. And it gives you a whopping 340 something to around 530 fire damage to attacks. Also gives you a little bit of penetration. But the most important thing, the staff has in itself Battle Mage, so we don't have to go Inquisitor. And this means that this whopping 340 to 500 fire damage as at the top, plus the whatever 58 to 170 physical damage, combine those two together, is going to be applied to the spells that are triggered by Battle Mage. Excuse me, is it called BattleMage Cry? Am I losing my shit? Yeah, BattleMage Cry, yes. So basically, BattleMage Cry combined with Battle Mage, you get the gist of what's happening here, right? Now, the reason why staffs are so important, because if you look at the tree, all the staff crit nodes, or the majority of staff crit nodes, are global. So if you read counterweight and the nodes around it, it gives you basically like 120% crit chance and 30 crit multi for both your attack and your spell. Same thing with a node called Serpent Stance around Avatar the Fire on the top end, which gives you basically around, what is this, like 20, 40, 60, 100 crit chance and a whopping around 50 current multi that also applies to both your attack and your spell. And at the end of the day, our attacks were hitting for a lot. We're talking like 4 million DPS with our slams of, you know, Berserk and Warcrys and everything, your rage up, because we're going to have Berserk up majority of the time because of a rage. You get it back instantaneously. And our spell was hitting so basically around 300k per hit. Now, the two spells that we're using is Wave of Convictions because it makes them take, well, it lowers their res by minus 15% fire. This is mostly fire damage. And we also use Divergent Purifying Flame as another fire spell because it does, you know, proc Concentrated Ground on the floor, which helps you a little bit of regen. And it kind of negates a little bit of the rage degen because we do take triple rage on the Ascendancy for even more speed, right? And that makes them take increased fire damage or increased damage taken in general while they're on the Concentrated Ground. We then link this to Combustion, so they take, you know, well, it does give more fire damage for the spell, which is good. But on top of that, it lowers their fire res by minus 19, which will then buff both my slam and my attack. Now, on the topic though, I had a 6-link staff, right, with my slam, and I had a 6-link chest piece with my spells. What ended up happening was, even as a slammer, and you get a bunch of rage, and even though you can slam 6 times a second, because you can only exert with the note in the tree that says Measured Fury, which says Warcries exert 1 additional time. So Battle Mage Cry would then exert the next 6 attacks. So for the next 6 attacks, when you attack and it hits, you're going to proc a spell. So we have basically 6 spells per 1 cast of Battle Mage Cry. Here's the thing. We are severely degraded by our attack speed and the cooldown of Battle Mage Cry. What ended up happening was that the spell was not proccing as often as I would like, despite hitting decently hard. So what ended up happening was that my slam started taking the fuck off. Like, it was doing a crap ton of damage. And I started realizing the spell was more of a utility support, kind of like a triggered wand, right? Where your triggered wand will then, you know, proc the negative res stuff that you want. That's basically what Battle Mage Cry was doing. And it was good. I'm like, okay. So I decided to then take the Battle Mage Cry setup, change it to a 4-link with only Combustion, Wave of Conviction, Purifying Flame for basically, what is that, like 34% pen and like a 5% increased damage taken plus Consecrated Ground. And then just go all out on my slam. I took out any spell crit node that I had. I kept the hybrid ones, obviously. I went for Blunt Trauma for even more crit and accuracy and things like that. And of course, Disemboweling is just like insane for attack crit or melee crit, basically. So our slam had insane amount of crit and ended up ending at like literally 6 to 7 million DPS with our slam using Sunder. And Sunder is fucking beautiful because before we were using Consecrated Path, and Consecrated Path is basically a bootleg flicker. You're basically a slow-ass tank with a big-ass fist, which is the MTX for Fist of War. And when you slam with that damn fist, it looks fucking cool. Like, it's awesome just teleporting around with this big fist. But in reality, because you're just like directly melee range, you do get kind of fucked here and there, despite all of our defenses, which we'll cover real quickly. So instead, we then swapped Sunder. So Consecrated Path look like this, which is kind of cool. But then in comparison to this, which is Sunder, it's fucking glorious. Sunder basically hits like multiple times, has the chunk, and bigger chunk at the end. So you can kind of lead the attack and then walk with the Sunder. And basically you're kind of safe because you're kind of this hybrid, you know, kind of range attacker. And what's cool is that any enemy in this range, it can be multiple, is hit. So if you do, let's say, like have 2 enemies, like say the Maven Fight or Uber Elder, you can hit both of them with 1 slam. On top of this, for each enemy hit by Sunder, there's a shockwave. This shockwave can stack. So basically, if you have 2 enemies and they're both hit with 1 Sunder hit, they both will release a shockwave, and each shockwave can't hit the same enemy, or each other enemy in the vicinity if they're close enough. And with all the AOE we have, you damn right be close enough because it's pretty chunky. And these shockwaves do hit for a fuckload of damage. So when you're fighting multiple enemies, the damage starts ramping like crazy. So I was honestly just very surprised that my slam was doing incredibly well. So at the end of the day, what they ended up making was a fire slammer with great defense and great damage, which is insane to think because slams were fucking nerfed to oblivion thanks to Seismic Cry nerf in 3.15, which basically removed like 180% more damage. And last time I checked, 180% more damage is not 40% fucking damage lost, that GGG said. It's a goddamn more damage. Also, Fist of War lost 50% too. So in reality, 230% more damage was lost. So I was very shocked to see that my slam build was still doing insane damage. And the reason behind this is basically because Mart of Innocence is actually a great fire DPS staff. 1, the staff nodes are great. 2, and for 3, we have an extra war cry that I didn't realize until halfway. Intimidating Cry is what we use, and it basically gives you double damage, right? If we use BattleMage Cry, it gives a little bit of crit. We do have a little bit of spell damage here and there, which is applied to the attack, which is kind of cool and all, but the cool thing was it's just it triggers or debuff like a triggered one. And 3, there's another war cry called Inferno Cry, which I've rarely ever used, and it's basically like an explodey chest for fire skills. And it basically adds like combust to your attacks and exerts like 6 attacks, which is great. Or 7 actually with the +1. And basically your Sunder, when it hits something with Herald of Ash, it just blows up the entire fucking screen. It is amazing for Harvest and is goddamn amazing for Expedition. And on top of that, it makes enemies covered in ash, which means they take even more damage, around 20%. And Intimidating Cry does intimidate enemies as well. So Intimidating Cry gives like 50% increased damage taken. The Infernal Cry is 20% increased damage taken. It's a whopping 35% increased damage taken, which is disgusting, and everything else. So you can see what's ended up happening is the slam took off, and we ended up using BattleMage Cry as a support. Needless to say, though, I will come back with a slammer that's going to abuse this to the end using Indigon. And I already have an idea what to do. I'm going to keep my mouth shut. Just wait for it. I'm not going to make a slammer, then another slammer, but I'll probably make this build. I'm already working on my next build. And then I might come back to the slammer and fuck around with it because it sounds interesting. But I'll keep my mouth shut. Just wait for it. Be patient. So, let's move on to defenses real quick. Now, as for defenses, we know that 3.15 is a bit rough when it comes to defenses since enemies do move faster and we're not really element immune as we used to. As a Berserker, we have a hard time trying to get element immunity and element avoidance. So the way we do this is we are using Devouring Datum, which gives you Eldritch Battery. And when you're using Eldritch Battery, basically your ES becomes your mana. This is really good because it means that you can reserve all your mana and still have basically the Energy Shield around your all fully reserved mana as your new mana, and as long as you have enough Energy Shield, you can basically sustain all spells absolutely no problem because you have like 700 freaking ES. And the way we get a lot of Energy Shield is basically using, I have actually the tier 2, there's a better tier version. There's a prefix you can craft for like pretty cheap, like 4 chaos on a chest piece. It basically gets gain upwards from as low as 5% up to 10% if you have tier 1 of max stun life as extra Energy Shield. I only went with tier 2, which is like 8% highest, and that basically gives me, I go from a 259 ES, since Devouring Datum is an ES helmet, all the way to 754. And this basically means that I have absolutely no problems with any mana whatsoever, and I can reserve all my auras. And the auras we really want to prioritize is Warbound for accuracy, Precision for accuracy, and crit, since we, as a slammer, we need a lot of accuracy, since it's really hard to get accuracy, right? And we can use Herald of Ash and Anger. And Anger is really good because it adds damage, both the attack and the spell. The spell still hits decently chunky in a 4-link. And then we can use a Watcher's Eye with penetration. Now, on this topic, though, we do have more space, and the extra space that we use, since we can reserve all our mana, is actually Arctic Armor. Arctic Armor gives you basically 13% less damage taken from physical and fire damage while stationary, which is great when you're slamming. And it makes you immune to basically freezes, which is awesome. We do take Unwavering Stance on the tree, so we're immune to stuns as well. And since we're fully armor, evasion doesn't really matter to us at all. And on top of that, if you get boots, ideally with elusive for increased movement speed when you crit, and dodge, you can still dodge even with a waving extender, is kind of cool. Nothing to brag about, honestly, though. You can craft like basic 20% movement speed boots with Kidnap Chill together, and basically you're immune to freeze and chill at the same time, which is absolutely fantastic. And thanks to Admonisher from the tree, you can remove an element when you Warcry. So if you get poison or ignite or bleed, you can just Warcry and you remove it. And you think you have 5 Warcries you can spam, well 3, but 2 of them can be used twice thanks to second wind. Elements don't touch you really. I don't know if it works in Corrupting Blood, but you do have a bleed flash for that, so use that to your advantage. On top of that, Warcries by nature taunt enemies, which makes them do 10% less damage, not reduced, less. And if you take Natural Authority, it also debilitates some, which means an additional 10% less, 20% less damage. Escalation basically recovers 10% of your life when you Warcry. And since you can spam 5 Warcries really fucking quick, that's 50% of your life back. So if you run out of a heal or you're kind of in a sticky situation and you have no pot, you can just spam your Warcries and you'll heal pretty substantially, which is great. So on that topic though, 20% less damage taken from taunting and debilitate, right? We do have the less damage taken from, Arctic Armor. Berserk is insane. Berserker, or the Berserk thing, when you have basically a lot of Warcry, which is Rage, which comes naturally from Warcrying, as a Berserker, basically makes you take 19% less damage. And we do have a helmet in chat for 30% of increased effect, but you don't need it. Let's say we ignore it. That's 20% from the taunt, and then from Berserkers another 20%. That's literally 40% less damage taken. We have 50% block as a staff, using a staff. We have endurance charges when we crit. We have a mortal call, which is great. We have 5.5k life, and we have leech. All the things together, we ended up being very, very tanky, and despite not having a lot of damage to basically blow up bosses in seconds, even though still great damage in this league anyway, as a slam build, surprisingly, we were able to stay in the fight long enough that we didn't die, and we can, we didn't really need our pots to do other damage, and we just stuck in there, and we literally, as a Berserker, brought it out surprisingly very well. We did all bosses. We're going to go into the boss montage very soon. Basically, Deathless, except for Uber Elder, I still kill them. I only died like a few times. First one was rough because of practice. Second one, I only died twice. One from bullshit. Second one from a mistake. Take it as is. You can still do it. The only fight, we even did the Maven fight, was a cakewalk. The only thing that I could not do to my hardest, and I did try, and it's because the build is a little bit too slow, and the fucking fight is just too spammy with projectiles, unfortunately, was Maven. If you don't really give a shit about Maven, and you want to farm Maven, it's not the build for you. But if you want to play a slammer, and you want to have a lot of fun, I highly recommend this build. It's absolutely amazing in terms of clear and damage and defenses overall when I finished everything out at level 90, 92. Very, very satisfied and happy with it. I'm just a bit sad that Maven was just a little bit too difficult these days, because without enough DPS to just completely and utterly burst her down, the fight gets fucking way out of control, bro. It's way out of control, especially with the brain phase. With all the stupid bosses these days, oh my god. Enough of the rant. That's pretty much it in terms of defenses. So I hope you guys enjoy it. It's an awesome and smooth map clear. And with that, let's go into the boss montage and see what you guys think about the damage. And yeah, we'll see you guys after that. All right. Oh my god, Berserk just saved my ass. Bitch, don't fucking heal the motherfucker. My mana's gone, the fuck? Did you not? Easy. Easy. Oh, too early. Oh, what the fuck? Oh, I killed it already. Now, before we move on, if you guys have enjoyed what you've seen so far, please consider leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel, as it helps me out immensely with the YouTube algorithm as per usual. And also, I do stream on Twitch every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, making new builds as per usual. And yeah, I'm having a lot of fun in this league. Honestly, I'm getting so crazy ideas from YouTube and from all my Discord, you know, community members as well. Because I guess because there's so many new skills this league, there's just so many new things to try out, especially because the meta is kind of very boring. The need to look at new builds is actually very, very high. And yeah, I'm actually enjoying the challenge of figuring things out, albeit with a little bit less diversity here and there, but so many new things to play and that I want to consider. Other than that, yeah, guys, if you have any questions, please, you know, don't hesitate to leave the questions down below in the YouTube comments, or the better place is to go to my Discord. The link is down below as well. You know, you can join the community, still very active, and that's probably the best place for you to contact me. And with that, let's move on. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the detailed version of the build guide. Now, I don't want this build to be as long as other builds that I've made in the past, so let's go through these things very quickly. The character is called Spell Slam New Meta. Ironically enough, though, it wasn't really anything based on Spell Slams at all, if anything. And BattleMage Cry basically just became a sort of, you know, utility skill, like I said earlier. Now, if you guys want to see we're going to do a map, obviously, later on. But I want to show you, like, real quick how the Warcry speed is. We just did 3 Warcries like that, and that's how much Warcry speed we have. And the main thing that you want to prioritize is when you pick up your Warcries here, get anonymous everything. Anonymous Intimidating Cry, anonymous, what do you call it, Infernal, and the anonymous, where is it, Battle Mage. What this does is it gives you 40% increased Warcry speed on every single Warcry. And plus, if you look here and you go Warcry speed, you can see here that we have this Warcry speed, all this Warcry speed, all this Warcry speed, and that's pretty much it, plus the quality of the gem. And you Warcry instantaneously, so please do this so you are not sitting there like a duck trying to Warcry when you really need it the most. And thanks to Second Wind, we can use this one twice, and this one twice. And then Infernal only once. You don't really need to spam that one at all much, because it's not really where your damage is coming from. As long as the spells that are linked, basically Wave and Purifying Flame, are on the enemy, they're kind of just chilling. Now, on the topic though, let's go over the skill tree very, very quickly, then the gear, and sort of there. This is PoB, link down below for the download, and this is how crazy it can be. So you can see here, if you go into the endgame tree, the first wave area is doing 9 million DPS if you slam it. And this is with a 98% hit chance. Do not worry about this because we're not a barrage build. Accuracy is more important when you're hitting many, many times a second. And since we're only slamming basically one big ass fist, you can hear that go. I'm gonna do that for a while. Look how satisfying that is. Oh, I love Sunder, bro. It's so juicy. Sorry, lost control of myself. Yeah, since we're only hitting literally like once per slam, this doesn't really matter, since the enemy, I don't think, will be hit by multiple Sunders. But it does have a shockwave. So you see your first area is like 9 million deeps. Final, same thing. And then the shockwave is still doing considerable damage, around 2.7 million average damage. Now, I don't want you to pay attention to the DPS as much, because this is really with Berserker up and everything. And while it'll be up the majority of time, what you really want to focus on is the average damage. And Berserker actually doesn't give you as much average damage as you would think, because the slower your slam, the more average damage it does. And since Berserk gives you basically a lot of attack speed, you can see here your DPS shoots the way up, and your average damage basically it's only 7%. So it's really more of a DPS thing, which allows you to proc other things more often. It's cool. So when you're leveling this character, I want you to prioritize Warcries, because you're going to be getting Infernal Cry by level 24, and you're going to be getting Intimidating Cry for double damage at level 10. And you can also use them in what's the other one called, the Recovery one, Enduring Cry for heal early on if you want to as well. So we really would go for Monitor for the cooldown speed and the Warcry speed. Measure 3 is amazing, so you Intimidating Cry, instead of only exerting 2, exerts 3, which is great. I want you to prioritize a lot of your attack life, and I made this mistake not getting life early on, and I really fell for it because I was already doing like tier 15s at level like 85, since it was my second character. And for that very reason, I should have prioritized life more, because the staffs that you level up with, which is basically these, let me show you real quick. Go to staff. Early on, you can basically just use a Storm Heart, right? And that's pretty much what I used to level up with primarily until I got this at level 50 something. It's like a level 50 unique, right? If I remove all the gems real quick, let me show you. It's a level 52 unique, and once you put this damn thing on, you're gonna just skyrocket in terms of damage. So you don't really need a lot of damage early on, really. So Storm Heart at level 20 will carry you there. Until then, just use basically any little mace. I believe I use Smite, because this is a slam technically. With Screaming Eagle for a lot of attack speed. And I highly recommend using a Replica's Crew Reward because it gives you accuracy and ints, which you need, and Dex as well for dash. And it gives you area effect and area damage. Because the other one's projectile, or not projectile, or AOE, right? Very cheap ammo for leveling. Highly recommend. Please do it. So basically, use Screaming Eagle, a Replica Crew Reward with, you know, your gold rims, 7 leaks up if you have it, or Wanderlust, and just keep going until you get your damn Stormheart. Right? That's pretty much what we're going to be doing until you get your other staff. And that's going to carry the majority of there with, because these are damage. They're not like primarily damage, but if you're Warcrying with Intimidate and Cry, those things will do a lot of damage. So don't worry too much about that. And things like that, right? Until Sunder, which is, I believe, is in Act 3. Highly recommend. And a level 21, 23 Sunder is actually very, very cheap. Let me do this real quick, just in case it's not active. Okay. You go here. Loading. There you go. It's like 3-5C, dude. That's how underused it is. It's such a good spell. It's such a good attack, right? So we want to prioritize this, and we're basically just focusing on the Warcries just so that it comes out quicker, so you're not in the animation lock as much as possible. So basically, we get all the Warcry nodes out of the way first. Pretty much it. And your thing, get the Warcry node. Amazing damage, 50% more damage, basically, if you Warcry twice in a row. And it gives you the Rage, which allows you to move faster and attack faster. At level 74. This is basically, once you're in Act 9, 10, you have your staff on, you can put Devouring Datum on, you know, you have a decent amount of gear, decent rings, whatever belt. Maybe if you're using a replica still. But you have your uniques, which is Devouring Datum, and the Innocence Helm on. Around this time, you know, we pick up more life nodes, you can pick up Constitution. No jewels yet, because I don't want you to focus on the money cost yet, right? I recommend you pick up Unwavering Stance, because being slammed out of a stunned out of a slam is very annoying. Get the crit. All this crit's amazing. Smashing Strikes is amazing for defenses, so you can get more endurance charges for fizz mitigation, and allows you to do faster damage taken right here. Immortal Call, which is absolutely fantastic. More life, more wed, more life, Avatar of the Fire, so you can convert a little bit of the fizz damage, right? And more crit. So basically, just crit and attack speed. And Sovereignty is going to be amazing to fit all your auras in. All the auras I'm using is quite a bit. We have Anger for more fire damage, War Banner for accuracy, Precision for accuracy and crit, Blood and Sand for AOE, and then, you know, more damage. And then on top of that, we do have, where is it here? Arctic Armor for mitigation, and basically primarily immunity to freeze. That's pretty much its main source there. For a single target, of course, you want to go Blood, and we use Concentrated Effect instead of increased AOE. And look at the AOE with that. It's still chunky as fuck. It would do a lot of damage. Right. And that's pretty much the gist of that. That's how you fit all the auras in, because the Devouring Datum does give you 20% reduced reservation on top of all that whopping energy shield. You can see here, it's around 250 ES, which is fine for most things, but if you're slamming with Berserker very, very quickly on a boss, you will run out. So that's why I crafted the 8% life, right? Highly recommend. And boom, you have like 6 auras. It's fucking fantastic. No Enlightened inside, because they're very expensive this league, right? And that's pretty much cool there, and that's the gist of that. And then once you go level 92, it's just getting more life, getting the jewels, right? Getting Blunt Trauma from more crit. And it's just basically filling out all the jewels and all the life. That's pretty much the rest of the build. And I believe Lava Lash as well. As you can see here, dude, the damage is fantastic. It blew me out of the water, honestly, how good it was. And if we had Seismic Cry before the nerf, still at least like some sort of more damage, this would have been chunky as fuck. This build would have been chunky as a motherfucker. Would have been really good. That's pretty much the gist of that. Right, you can see up here, our Pantheons is our Kali for reduced damage taken and recovery from Leech, which is great. Also Chaos damage, Chaos resistance against Chaos damage over time, and the reduced effect of Shock is surprisingly very useful. Highly recommend you get that as well. And Chikari just for poison, because it's annoying, and reduced Chaos damage. That's all really for poison, because poison's annoying. But it's not too much of a problem, thanks to the node here, Admonish, like I said earlier, where you can remove it once you Warcry. Right? As for your gear, of course, Marred of Innocence. This thing was like 3x, and it was only 1 in the market when I bought it. And then that video guide came out, and it was like 7x, and now it's dropped to 4.5 for 6 link, which is still not too bad, guys. Honestly, it's really good. The staff is amazing. It gives you a lot of block. You can see here my block is around 43. And when we crit, thanks to this node, we get 5% blocks. It's 48, right? And on top of that, right, it gives you so much fire damage, penetration, and battle mage. And honestly, the battle mage is not as important anymore because we're not focusing on the spell. Needless to say, though, it's still a very great staff for damage, and I don't think even at Xerius' favor or even a Void Forge would beat it, especially since it gives you block anyways. And the cool thing is it does have Vengeance on it, which means when you're hit, you have a chance to counterattack, And so I decided, because of that, to put my slam damage in here, because Vengeance will then use those more damage multiplier gems, and it will, when it, it counterattacks, it will do a lot of damage, and I believe it can be exerted as well. So if you have Infernal Cry, which makes things explode, the block will make them explode too, which is kind of cool. So we have Fortify here just basically for pure defense. I forgot to mention that before, but you have also Fortify as well. Increase AOE for clear, Conk for single target, Fist of War, elemental damage of attack skills, Pulverize. This is great, even though it has less attack speed. Less attack speed is actually more damage for you, because the slower the slam, the more damage. On top of that, it's AOE and more area damage. Basically, this is the highest DPS average hit damage you have. I don't recommend you swap it out. Just make sure you have enough rage so that you can, you know, kind of mitigate the attack speed, right? And then Sunder, of course, the behemoth himself. I love his damn skill, so chunky. If you have the NTX, oh, highly recommend it. Devouring Datum. Not highly, mandatory. Please pick one up with Dexterity and Intelligence. You're going to need that Dex very badly for your dash. Basically, it allows you to fit all your auras in. And we have Anger, Arctic Armor, or the Vash, and Precision. Try to get level 21 Precision so you can get that crit and accuracy as high as possible. It can fit in no problem. And if you have a helm enchant, Berserk is kind of cool. I got it naturally. I didn't buy it like this. But whatever enchantment works, I recommend the Berserk one too, because it does mean that you attack faster, you move faster, and you take less damage thanks to Berserk itself, which is an insane skill, honestly. For your gloves, get accuracy. You need that accuracy. Life, whatever is you need, attack speed, and then open prefix, get a conversion. Basically what you're looking at. All right, I highly recommend that for each piece of gear, other than your helmet, get armor. You want armor because you need that mitigation for armor, since we can't get evasion due to unwavering stance, right? Here's our Battlemage setup. Anonymous Battle May Cry, the Warcry speed, combustion for 9 minus, oh, it's different, they nerfed this, minus 10% fire res, no problem. When you ignite it, it's basically if a spell crits, which it will always crit, it's like very often. Wave of Conviction for an additional minus 15 res, and then Purifying Flame. Divergent does 5% increased damage taken to enemies on conjugated ground. Fantastic. On your boots, you can get like a regular, you know, a lot of res, a lot of life, and then just grab movement speed with chill on it, and I'd be chilled. But I highly recommend if you can't pick up Elusive, because it'd be good for mapping. It gives you basically 30% movement speed, which kind of offset the loss of movement speed from the crafted movement speed, right? But between this boot and Arctic Armor, I cannot be frozen or chilled, which means you have very smooth gameplay, and every other element is basically removed thanks to this node. So we're kind of immune to elements, which is surprisingly not what I was expecting for defense, but very viable. Highly recommend. Right. And then from here we have Anonymous Criminal Cry, Anonymous Intimidating Cry, Second Wind, and then Dash. So basically we can dash twice and we can Warcry twice. For bosses, you're basically going to go Intimidating to intimidate them for more damage. You get 40 Rage. Then you want to use Infernal Cry. It covers them in Ash. You sacrifice 10 Rage. We're now at 30 Rage, right? And you get 50% more damage for 4 seconds from the Berserk passive right here. Where is it? Warbringer. And then with 30 Rage, you then, you know, I have it here in my mouse, like this weird little second button on my mouse. And on the other control bar, with 30 Rage, we can Berserk. It'll drop you down, basically down to below 25 Rage very, very quickly, thanks to Warbringer. And at that point, you just Warcry again. And if you're below 25, you just jump to a 60 Rage, like maxed out Rage, which is absolutely bonkers. And yeah, you basically have like Perma Berserk if you can time it right. And make sure you only Warcry on a boss when you're less than 25 Rage. Very, very cool. And it's actually kind of fun for skill, since I like builds that make me want to, you know, emphasize my skill more than anything else, right? On your Glorious Plate, highly recommend you get a, I found this pretty cheap. It's like 30C, 20C. You don't need a 6 link, which is fantastic. You just want to get a lot of life, whatever res you need. In this case, I need a fire res. The power charge on crit, I think this is really good for crit. Ended up being more crit than base crit, since the base crit on Martyr of Instance is pretty decent. And then you want to open prefix for the maximum life as extra energy shield. Pretty much it. There we have Divergent Berserk. Divergent was just there because it gives you 5% more spell damage. It doesn't even matter these days, because the spell does nothing. I bought it for that sake. You can get a regular Berserk. Ancestor War Chief for more damage, for more melee damage. Button Sands, I also bought a Divergent because it gives you AOE for your spells. I still recommend it because AOE is kind of nice, but yeah, you don't really need it. It's basically more AOE and more area damage when you swap between Blood and Stance. And War Banner for basically accuracy. Pretty much the gist of that. Your belt, get a Stygian Vise, a lot of life and res. Wed Craft is more than enough. Very good for the open prefix. Abyssal Jewel, get life, crit multi or attack speed if you dealt critical strike recently, and then get accuracy. You need that accuracy, right? And then for ring. Okay, this is where it gets kind of lucky. You want a Circle of Anguish with reduced reservation and either, not even either. You want just basically fire damage while affected by Heart of the Vash. But here's the cool thing. This synthesized ring, and then plus you can get, I got this for 60 chaos, which is actually insane. You can get elemental damage leeches life. This is my only source of leech on this build, and it's more than enough to cover everything else. If you don't get this here, you do have to spend 4 points and travel to this node for the Life Leech. You don't need the mana because you have Eldritch Battery, right? And that's kind of a pain in the ass. It does help with dexterity problems, you would see, but if you can please pick up a ring with ailments, basically like elemental damage leeches life, you're gonna highly recommend it. See if I can even find one Circle of Anguish. There's 4, 10, 20 C, but can I get one fire damage? And there's 0, unfortunately. But if you can, for now, just get like a buff effect or something with this leech, and it's gonna help you out immensely. Highly recommend it. If you can't get the fire damage, so be it. Just use an elemental leech one, because saving 4 points in a tree is totally worth, even without the 60% fire damage, in my honest opinion. Right. If you can do that, especially with these insane implicits, I can't believe about this ring, honestly. It was a life changer when I got it. But highly recommend it. You know, the implicit itself is not too expensive. Other than that, over here, just can we get one with reduced reservation? We have 4. Okay, so make sure to get that one and reduce the reservation, and whatever it has here, just take it in whatever it is. You know? With this ring, you want to basically get a shaper ring, eye level 75 or higher, and you want to reforge caster using harvest, and you basically have a decent chance of getting how would you say, Assassin's Mark. That's pretty easy. Or you can use buy one. I think I bought this one for like an exalt. It had life on it, and then I looked for an open prefix so you can craft minus mana cost. You don't need the minus mana cost of Eldritch Battery. It was there for my Storm Ring character, but I just left it on because I don't have that craft. So I just left it for the sake of leaving it. But instead you can craft Wed. My surety has Wed. You can craft damage. Whatever. Right. But basically, the dexterity here is a very good issue because it helps with basically a lot of dex problems. So what I recommend is getting an Assassin's Mark ring with dexterity. You don't need the fire res. You do need the 2-stone ring. So get a 2-stone ring with Assassin's Mark and dexterity. Anything else you can get like life and damage is extra. These are very easy to get thanks to harvest, right? So if you can pick them up, I highly recommend it, and just buy it yourself if you don't want to go through the hassle of crafting one. That's pretty much it. This Ami is fucking insane too. I got it for like 60 chaos, but what you're looking for basically is life and crit multi and whatever res you can get, pretty much. The fire damage to attacks is awesome for damage. If you can get it, go for it as well. And the spell damage is a plus because thanks to BattleMage Cry, the spell damage does apply to my attacks as well. But this was just a lucky draw. But if you can get one that's not a fucking Lapis Amulet with intelligence and instead with dexterity, please do, because that would help you relieve some of the dexterity requirements from this ring instead. So yeah, the only reason I have so much dex here is because I got no dex from this Ami. The damage and life and res was just too much worthwhile to bother with the dex, honestly. And for your anointments, boom bada bing. Our source of energy shield leech for a mana, Heart of Flame, and gives you penetration, fire damage, and fire damage leeches energy shield. So we basically have an interesting way of getting leech. We get leech from anointments, and we get leech for life from our ring over here. It saved a lot of points, so I highly recommend it. You know, very big deal. Very, very cool. Right, and that pretty much covers the gear other than Flask. Since we have immunity to freeze and chill, get movement speed. If you don't have the chill craft, use a freeze immunity Flask. Just for the chill effect, honestly. A instant recovery divine flask with corrupting blood immunity. A silver flask with maximum charges. You can use it twice. And ideally, go with poison. Poison is really annoying, so just in case that for some whatever reason you didn't work like soon enough, we have a lot of stacks of poison. This will give you that immunity, and it's very good. And put use when you become poisoned using the purple orbs here, which is instilling, right? Very handy, so you don't have to click it yourself. Diamond flask. Said it again. Please get a diamond flask with crit during flask effect and increased effect, because it both applies to the 100% global crit and the flask effect on the bottom. So in total, this thing gives like over 200% crit chance. Absolutely insane. Highly recommend. The top thing I would probably recommend you get additional charges, so you can use it 3 times instead of power charge on crit. But if you do crit, you get some charges here and there, which is not too big of a deal anyway. But additional charges will probably be best. And at the end of the day, you want a sulfur flask. with remove curses and just for damage. But you can go granite for more armor. I'm not a fan of it too much these days. If you want maximum damage, get a Bottle of Faith. I got a Bottle of Faith from my Cortex with this character. I didn't swap it in because the build was already done anyway. If you have the money to afford a 18 Exalt Flask, go ahead. Honestly, I'm not going to slap it in because this flask is in essence more expensive than the entire build. So for that reason, I didn't include it. But you can slap it in if you so desire, and you'll probably hit some stupid numbers with it. Highly recommend. And it'll be a lot better than what you saw in the video. Right. So that pretty much covers that. And for your bandits, you want to kill Alira. If you don't know that, it's also on the PoE up here. Alira Bandit gives you pure multi and resist, which you really need. Now, let's go with a quick, basically, map showcase. And yeah, pretty much ends it there. See you there. Okay, guys, for the map that we're going to run is going to be a tier 16 underground. See, I wanted something a little bit more brighter, but I couldn't get to buy a map as a tier 16 because all tier 16s honestly kind of suck. And for this one, it's like a decent map because Underground Sea does have a lot of pack size. And it is Valda's Rest, and we have magic pack size, fire monsters, a legion encounter. We actually have a legion scarab as well, so it's going to be 2 legions, and additional rare monsters. We have the Metamorph, Harbinger, and the Elder Scarab, and of course another legion. Done that in there so we can put in here Harbinger. I don't put too much Harbinger because they're annoying to kill. And I'll pull a Rogue Exiles because why not? Because I'm not going to do strong boxes. Run it. And I usually put Zana on that, but I'm not going to bother and just run it. On tier 16s, I would put Zana just because the chance of getting an Elder map or something good. Right? So, here we go. Now, because we're Sunder, we basically want to use his range to his effectiveness. So we want to work right here early. We have increased AOE? Yeah, we do. All right. So basically, you want to lead with your Sunder, and you're pretty good. Now, the only downside... I'm not going to do the Blight, it takes too long. The only downside to Sunder when it comes to rage... Hello? Flag? Bird? Is that because it kind of has a lot of range, you don't really get close enough to get rage a lot of the times. So you kind of have to force yourself into melee range a little bit when you really want to get that thing in. Is that a Rogue Exile? Okay. How many Rogue Exiles are there? There's Legion. Legions, you want to go straight for the rare. So you want to go for the edge, pop Berserk, make sure everything's dead. And you want to go for the areas that have the most loot around here. Oh, this area does suck for this type of stuff. Now here you do want to pop Berserk. If there's any rare monster that'll kill you, it's definitely a rare monster with allies deal substantial extra fizz damage. That is probably the biggest thing you have to be worried about because holy hell can they one-shot you if the right mods. But you know, that's an issue PoE's always had. It's just more common now because your defenses and your movement speed and damage have been nerfed, right? And it is what it is. Yep. We do have enough defense to make up for it between Berserk, and as long as you taunt, you're good to go, right? Because since a lot of our defense is very situational, i.e. Berserk, right? We're talking about Berserk and the fact that you have to taunt them to do for them to do less damage. If they're not taunted, they will do full damage against you, other than, of course, fortify and things like that. So, try to make sure that if you're fighting a rare that looks rippy or it's a rippy map, try to taunt as many things as possible. We'll loot the things later. You know, just run it. Get my Warcrys in, load them, and go straight for the rares. Try to do it in a line like this so you get all of it. And Infernal Cry does a good job here of basically exploiting everything that we can. This is not a good Legion map, honestly. But hey, we do what we get. See, rare. Berserk it up. I don't want to risk dying to any small little detail. Intimidate everything. These two guys are a pain in the ass. Especially when they have a fucking proximity bubble. Whose idea was it to put proximity bubble in this game? I'll do it now real quick. All sparring guardhouse. We'll do guardhouse. Huh? This would be pretty cake. Because you put one slam and we'll just watch it roll to the end. That's probably the best beauty about this build. Slam once and you just watch it slide all the way to the end. Got a wall there. Curse you. As you can see here, I don't have a lot of rage until I get really nearby. Some passage. Tunnels. And what's left over here? There you go.
Good job.
Loot it later. Move on with our lives. I believe there's a little dead end over here, right? Let's go. That's good enough. Let's go into the boss already because I don't want this map to be like 8 goddamn minutes long. Because, you know, when you juice up a lot of these maps, can get pretty freaking long, especially if you pick up all the loot. Now, one thing I do want to notice is that I sincerely feel like this Fist MTX does make the game lag a bit. I don't know if it's me or not. There's a harvest there. That's kind of neat. My sound disappeared. If you need extra damage, put a totem down. You know, I said I was gonna go for the boss, but I take it back. I got 10 chains on my ass. Sulfur flask for remove curses is great for those things, type of things. Okay, moving on. Harvest really is just like Expedition, where you basically just press E for Infernal Cry and everything freaking explodes. I can do like one little harvest patch, if anything, just to show it off. The power of the explodey chest. Do one real quick. Let me do one a little bit fatter. More mods on it. 4, 3 chaos. We'll do this as a 4 attack. I'll load this all later. Huh? You see everything just blows up. Oh, we have the annoying fucking devour. Probably like the worst one to freaking kill. There he is. There you go. And just for the sake of harvest. And goodbye. Okay. We'll come back for you later. Let's go straight for the boss from here. That's pretty much it. See, basically, when you do a harvest for like Expedition or any big packs, you want Intimidating and Infernal it, and that way you do double damage, and your Infernal will explode everything on sight, and that's really where you want to go. But that was the boss room. I was debating myself the entire time. Of course I was. Usually these things lead like a dead end. Put a portal. Put this. Put blood. And we're good to go. You see, for the most part, most bosses literally got one shot, especially if it crits. That's pretty much it. This is Metamorph. We got currency, valuable currency. Armor. Poly gems. 2 essences. Talismans. Currency. Antidote. Yeah. Let's go. Shouldn't be too bad. You get Warcry pretty easily. You see my rage is 47, 40. I'm counting it. You work hard twice and you're kind of good to go. Oh, we actually died. There we go. That was a lot of catalyst. Oh, that's right. We got 2 metamorphs. And what is this degen? Jesus. More currency? Question mark? Polygems? Where? Currency? Divination cards? Fine. Go. Hopefully he's not as rippy as the other one. Can't see shit. And there you go. That wasn't as bad. And that's pretty much the end of the map. So with that, Hope you guys enjoyed. Let's go into the outro. And that pretty much sums up the end of the build guide. Hope you guys have enjoyed, you know, this kind of interesting concept into Battle Mage Cry. Even though we didn't like really specify on it, we ended up making a very good slammer when slammers have been kind of nerfed into another realm, or so we thought, ironically enough. So slammers are still kind of viable. They still do pretty good damage, but unfortunately I think it's only really limited to berserkers right now. That's where the build diversity kind of like falls apart a little bit. I can make a bunch of different slammers, but they all probably will be, you know, berserkers, unfortunately. But I have ideas for maybe a non-berserk slammer, but a different idea, actually using Indigon for Battle Mage Cry. Well, that's a topic for a different day and a different video. So with that, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed all the information. I'll catch you in the next informative video or detailed build guide. Peace out.